Yes, and we are live on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. And yeah, today we are exploring the theme of mother wound healing as a pathway to healing your womb, right? And for those who are joining us for the first time, hello. My name is Dimelo Mareri, and I am a womb medicine woman based in Botswana. And essentially, what that means is that I hold healing space for mostly women leaders to heal their inner womb wounds and pains, right? And yeah, for those joining in, hi there. Please just say hi to me. Yeah, and let me know from where in the world you're joining in. Yeah, and also just share whatever feels alive for you, and possibly any intentions that you might hold for the session, and any hopes really that you might have around this theme, around the theme of womb healing, right? And yeah, before we get into it, and as we wait for others to join in, I'm just going to quickly share this video to one location, so that others may know that we are live, and yeah, and come join us, right? Yeah. So yeah, in the meantime, just say hi to me, and also so that um, I can see who. No, I can see that. I can actually see your comments, and I can. Hi, Nakisani. It's so great to have you here. And a happy belated birthday, right? It was your birthday recently, right? Happy belated birthday. Um, yeah, like I saw a very beautiful message having been written by for you, and yeah, it was deeply inspiring. Okay, we'll start in a bit. Let me just quickly share this, right? And we will get going. Okay, beautiful. Yay! um, just share to the group. Okay, I trust that it's done. Yeah. All right. So yeah, welcome again to this live session, which is part of, a womb medicine teaching series, which I started hosting in August. And when we stepped into September, I thought we could just continue doing that, that deep work, of just exploring these themes that we've been exploring on womb healing and womb medicine, right? Yeah. And so last week we explored intimacy healing as a pathway to healing your womb, right? And today we're exploring the theme of mother wound healing as a pathway to healing your womb, right? So what you will notice about these themes, right? They're actually like pathways that I employ in my work when I hold space for women to heal their wombs, right? And so also what you will notice about these pathways, right? They are like areas in your life where a wounding would have happened to your womb, right? Where they would have some wounding inflicted on your womb or sustained by your womb, right? And so when we do the inner healing work, these are the places that we want to go to deeply interrogate and offer inner healing medicine at that level, right? Yeah, my lighting is acting up. I think this is better. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, like it was feeling a bit darker on my end. I hope you all can see me, right? Okay. And there are really other themes we could also explore, like father wound healing is one of them. We've previously also explored generational or bloodline healing, right, as a pathway to healing your womb. We can also explore like sexuality healing as a pathway to healing your womb, because those are areas, in the life of a woman where wounding can be sustained by her womb, right? And so for our theme today, like of mother wound healing, one, we want to explore like just the link between your mother wound and your womb pains, right? And we're also going to be looking at some of the cultural implications, just looking at what it means for you as a woman, living in the 21st century in the current culture. All right, so we're going to be here for about 45 minutes to an hour. And we're then also going to look at like the points of wounding, relating to your mother wound. Relating to your mother, your relationship with your mother and your womb, that might actually result in womb pain. And we also want to look at how you can facilitate healing for your womb, right? And so, like just as a point of departure, right? Yeah. So it keeps cutting on me. I don't know why it's doing this to us when we need to do this important work of our lives, right? So the mother-child relationship or mother-daughter relationship, since we're speaking about the womb and womb healing, is a primary relationship like for all human beings, really, right? And most of the womb pains of women tend to flow from this relationship. They tend to flow from experiences within the relationship of a mother and a daughter, right? And so as a result of it being such a core relationship in the life of a woman, and some of whose experiences can be wounding and therefore resulting in womb pain, we really cannot have a conversation about womb healing without talking about the relationship of a woman and her mother, right? And also of the myriad of experiences that happen within that relationship, right? So like it's until you hear about it, like this mother wound, it can be such an elusive thing, that is running in your life without you even being aware that it's happening, Like somebody might say, oh, my relationship with my mom is actually okay. Yes, it could be okay, but there actually might be elements or remnants of the mother wound, just moving in your life and informing some of your actually very intimate experiences, right? And so we're going to be exploring some of those now, right? And maybe let me just preface this with some of what's currently happening within our culture, with regards to women and motherhood, and why there might actually be a wounding flowing from this relationship, right? So when you look at the relationship of a mother and a child, it's like 95% plus of human beings have a mother, or flow from a mother, like the 5% would be like the exceptions, right? And as mentioned, like this is a core primary relationship for all human beings, right? And also it is from this relationship with our mothers that we receive most of our foundational education, either direct or indirect, right? So for some people, their mothers are present in their lives, and for some people, you find that the mothers are not present, right? So even when your mother is not present, there's still some form of education, conditioning, programming that is happening, and that informs your outlook or your own perception or beliefs, around what life means or what life is supposed to look like, right? And so, all which I'm going to be sharing today, it also, like in most instances, also relates to the father wound, right? But today we're just going to park matters of your relationship with your father, and we're going to be mostly just focusing on you and your mother, right? And we'll probably have a conversation about the father wound at some point. Actually, I want to invite one of my former clients with whom I did like massive work on his father wound. Yeah, I just want to check with him if he would be willing to come do an interview on the work he did on his father wound, right? Yeah, so back to the mother wound, right? When you look at our culture right now, and at the position of women and motherhood in our society, our current culture is set up in such a way that there is some wounding that will definitely be sustained by human beings from this primary relationship, right? So by this culture, we are looking at this culture which is capitalist in nature, which is patriarchal. And when you look at most families, especially across the African continent, most of our homes are headed by single parents, right? And most of those single parents are women, right? Like a significant proportion of families are led by single parents, and of those families which are led by single parents, a significant proportion of them are women, right? And so you will find that in a home, you have a woman who is juggling many responsibilities, trying to put food on the table. And so when we get now to speak about the points of wounding, because one of the points of the wounding that happens within our relationships with our mothers, right? And that results in womb pain is unprocessed emotions, right? So we have spoken quite extensively about the sources of womb pain, one of them being unprocessed emotions, 2 being generational or ancestral wounding, 3 being sexual trauma, 4 being like wounding from past lives, and then 5, this one has to do with like timelines of war and slavery, especially here on our African continent, right? So when we deeply interrogate the source of unprocessed emotions, you will find that there's quite a chunk of them that flow from our relationship with our mothers, right? And please let me know at any point, let me know what resonates with you and if you might have any questions, right? And so now, like within those unprocessed emotions, we might find like feelings of having been abandoned or rejected, feeling not good enough, feeling shame, feeling guilt, disappointment, etc. We'll explore them in a bit, right? And also like just check in with yourself, where you're at with your own relationship with your mother, right? And so yeah, like just back to the culture of this like single parent home being run by a woman, juggling many tasks, right? You might find that some of these unprocessed emotions that emerge, possibly you feeling having been abandoned by your mother, and most of these experiences are happening in your childhood, right? Where there could have been an event that happened in your relationship with your mom that led to you feeling abandoned or rejected or resulting in you not feeling good enough, right? And so some of these are just as a result of how our culture is currently wired, right? Juggling many roles, trying to put food on the table, trying to provide materially, and maybe sometimes failing to be there for her kids emotionally, right? Because of what's happening. And so we also, like having said that, we also want to acknowledge that there are actually some relationships between mother and daughter that are actually abusive, right? And which can also actually, be physically wounding, right? However, most of the wounding that we're going to exploring here today is either emotional or spiritual, right? And like, we also just want to look at the experience of motherhood, in our society, where mothers or parents are mostly doing the motherhood thing alone, right? Which is quite a heavy task, right? We just find that there has been a shift in terms of how parenting used to be done, especially here in our African society, where it used to be a communal responsibility, right? Now we see a lot of mothers doing that alone, or a lot of parents doing that alone, having to juggle the material provision, the emotional, the spiritual, etc. So we find that usually most of our childhood needs are not necessarily being met within this primary relationship, right? And which can actually lead to some wounding, right? We'll explore that in a bit, right? And also, just when we look at the position of women in terms of like the conditioning around her sexuality, the conditioning around her body, her pleasure, and her conditioning or programming about women, and therefore what she teaches you about these things, right? So you might find that as a result of what your mom was taught about her sexuality or her body, she therefore is not necessarily in a position to teach you a more empowering message about your own sexuality and about your body, right? And so these are some of the things that just flow from your relationship with your mom, as your primary caretaker and as your primary source of foundational education. From her, you are learning, you are like for the first time learning about your body, learning about your sexuality, learning about pleasure, learning about women in J, and just how they associate with men within our society, right? So yeah, like that would just be like the current cultural setting, around women, around motherhood, and that therefore informs the relationship between mothers and their daughters, right? And yeah, so like the first point of wounding, therefore, as I've mentioned this, would be, and that would result in womb pain, is unprocessed emotions from your relationship with your mother, right? And so there are multiple layers and intersections within the work that we would do. Like if you were to sit down with me and we do this work, there are quite a number of intersections, right? And so one intersection within mother wound healing is inner child healing, right? And so within inner child healing, within that intersection of inner child healing and mother wound healing, we are looking at the experiences within your childhood in your relationship with your mother, right? And some of these unprocessed emotions, these would have like emanated from particular events from your relationship with your mother. And Jay, as you're growing up, interacting with your mom, going to the mall, going to school, her dropping you off, etc., right? So some of these emotions might be like the feeling that your mom has abandoned you, and these can be really deep, right? And they often emerge within healing sessions, right? The feeling of having been rejected by your mother or by the feminine, right? The feeling of not good enough emanating from your relationship with your mom, right? The feeling of shame, which is really big for a lot of women, right? Because our current society, the current culture within our society, it trumpets shame at every point of a woman's upbringing and development, right? Shame around her body, shame around the shape of her boobs, shame around the shape of her vulva, shame around whether she is having sex, shame around, if she's having it, if she's not having it. And yeah, so when I was reflecting on this, for those who might be fans of Game of Thrones, I used to watch Game of Thrones a lot. So there's a scene in there about some walk of shame that Cersei had to do, right? And as she was walking, like, I don't know what they call it, along the city, right? They kept like shouting shame, 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 right? And that was it was such a massive scene for me, just in terms of the history of women in this world. Because at every point of your development as a woman, there is some message of shaming that is being just thrown into your life, whether it is around your experience with your menstrual period, menstruation, or your sexuality, or birthing babies, or breastfeeding. The experience of a woman in this planet is one shrouded with a lot of shame, right? And so when we do the inner work actually of womb healing, you will find that one of the biggest emotions that are being held by our wombs and that are resulting is womb pain is shame, right? And to process that shame, so what usually happens is that when we're sitting with unprocessed emotions, these unprocessed emotions become held within our wombs. And being the maiden that she is, she then tries to churn and process those emotions on our behalf, right? And that process of like processing those emotions usually manifests in physical pains, as she feels those emotions on your behalf, right? It manifests as physical pain. Another element is just that we live in a society where there really isn't much space or much safe space for the full expression and experience of our emotions. So you find that a lot of us, both women and men, are sitting with a huge chunk of unprocessed emotions, and that inform a whole myriad of our experiences, how we show up in intimacy, how we show up in our sexuality, how we show up in life, how we advocate for ourselves. A lot of it emanates from just these unprocessed emotions, from wounding experiences we might have had in our lives. We are quite like easily available to express like almost like the shall I say the lighter emotions, the happier ones. Usually when somebody laughs, we're happy about it. We don't react. But when somebody cries, it's usually not as welcome as it is. Than when people are laughing, right? So and these unprocessed emotions usually have like a spiritual and genetic implication, right? If they are highly charged, right? So it would be that maybe you had some experience with your mom. Maybe she like left you at the aisle of a shop for like 2 minutes, and because you're a baby, you're a child, it feels like she's left you, abandoned you for 5 years, right? And that can stay with you, like that feeling of, it's called an abandonment wound, right? Where you feel like you have been abandoned, right? If it has such a high or a strong charge, it can leave like an imprint on your genes, on your DNA, and on your spirit body, right? Such that it could be that abandonment wound can be inherited by your children, and it can also be felt across your many lifetimes, which are also called soul extensions, right? So some of the unprocessed emotions that we sit with, they're so highly charged that they can leave an imprint on our DNA and therefore be passed on to our children, or they can leave an imprint on our spirit body and therefore have the impact of, affecting the other multiple experiences of our souls, right? And this is with the understanding of just how vast our soul is. Like, right now, there's so many parts of your soul having life experiences elsewhere. And what you're currently experiencing impacts their experience, and what they are experiencing wherever they are, it impacts on your experience right now, right? So we want to also work with that understanding. Please let me know what resonates for you, right? and or if you might have any questions. And also, just speaking on this emotion of shame, which is like a big one for women, this also gets passed down. Like it's such a big one, like shame goes back even like to the ages when like healers used to be burned at the stake, being called witches and all of that, right? It goes back like across generations, right? Where women were shamed for their gifts, where women were shamed for their beauty or for their hair or for their bodies, right? And a lot of us women still carry that, the imprint of that wounding within our bodies right now, and some of it, it manifests as womb pain, right? And another thing, that's been coming up as I'm just deeply, immersed in this work is of womb pain largely being an ancestral wound, especially for African women. Like for the vast majority of African women, womb pain emanates from generational wounding, from the wounding of our grandmothers across generations, right? And so, yeah, but before we get there, let's just finish off with the unprocessed emotions from relationship with mom. And this relates to what I was saying, about the vastness of your soul, right? So the people, just a background, the people we are currently closely related to or with, like our immediate family, siblings, parents, we are really not meeting these people for the first time, spiritually speaking, They are part of what is called our soul monadic group, right? We have had multiple lifetimes with these people, and we therefore keep choosing them again and again, right? And this is also why family tends to be so triggering for us. Like when you look at just your experience as a human being, you'll find that the relationships that trigger you the most are, like your siblings, your relatives. Friends are fine. Like friends tend to be okay. But like mom, dad, siblings, and this is in part because you have such a huge history with these people going beyond this current lifetime, right? And so some of these unprocessed emotions within your relationship with your mom, and some of which might result in womb pain, are not coming from this lifetime, right? They're coming from past lifetimes, either on this planet or in other, like star systems, right? And this is also with the understanding that we are vast beings, like our ancestry is bigger than just this planet, right? So when I do womb healing with you, we really go that deep, right? We investigate the sources of your womb pain within like your human ancestry, with your current relatives, with your current lineage. And we also want to look at your soul lineage as well, across like timelines, like lifetimes. Yes. And so usually when like a deeply wounding event happens in your life, like, and it could be like so simple, like your mom leaves you in an aisle at the shop for 2 minutes and it feels like 5 years, There are things that we often then make called vows, You could make a vow that it's like a deeply rooted belief that I am always alone. That could be a vow. I'm always alone. No one is here for me. They always leave me. The feminine always leave me, if it's your mother, right? And you'll then find that as a man, when something like that happens in your relationship with the feminine, it like just deeply informs how you then relate with women, and also just with the feminine energy in your life, right? Could be creativity, could be like the energy of surrender, the energy of receptivity, etc. Like those feminine energies, right? Yeah, so when we do the inner healing work, we also want to discover what wounds, what vows you might have made during those deeply wounding experiences, and also look at how they're impacting your life, right? They could be also impacting your life over and beyond the wound pain that you're experiencing in your life, They seep into your intimacy. They seep into how you create and run your business. They seep into your leadership. They're literally everywhere, right? So it's a deep and vast work, but which is so important and so necessary, especially during these times, right? And yeah, another point of wounding that happens for women and that results in womb pain, right? We have now stepped away from the unprocessed emotions, would be the emotions or womb wounds and womb pains that you inherit from your mother, right? So earlier we spoke about how for some human beings, your mom is present in your life as you grow up, but for some human beings, their mom is not even there. So this particular element, this particular point of wounding that we're talking about is a wounding that happens just as a result of you having been born to your mother and having chosen your mother's lineage, right? So just as a result of having sat in her womb for 9 months and being a member of her lineage, right? You can, one, inherit her own unprocessed emotions, and this relates to men as well. So like the very subtle experience of being in your mother's womb, like it's such an exquisite and tender one, right? Such that if there are any unprocessed emotions sitting within your mother's womb, she can pass them to you, right? And if there's any womb pain and any womb wounding that is at that point sitting in your mother's womb, it can be passed on to you at an emotional and spiritual level. Guys, I hope this makes sense, right? Let me know. Let me know if I might have taken it too far, right? And that is relating to your mom. And there's also a layer with your grandmother. So at the point when your mom was formed within your grandmother's womb, right? She already within her, like the seeds of the eggs, and you became one of those eggs, right? So at one particular point, you have actually been in your grandmother's womb, right? As a very like early stage egg within your mother's ovary, right? So when you study the biology, when conception happens, like we already have in there as women all of the eggs for our entire lifetime, right? So before your mom was born, she already had you in there as an egg. So you have actually existed in your grandmother's womb, right? And so that then presents another layer of inheritance, right? Of unprocessed emotions and of womb pain, right? And so when you look at the experiences of our grandmothers during their times, some of their deeply wounding experiences happen within their marriages, within the repressive and oppressive cultures that some of them lived in, and where like just deep pain would have been sustained, right? And where also like very strong vows would have been made. When we talk about lineages and families where women don't get married or women don't get to experience love, some of them is coming from like in a generational wounding that was held within vows, maybe a grandmother somewhere experienced something deeply wounding, and she was just like, me and my children will never get married because this is too painful, right? And that then leaves an imprint on the DNA and is passed along generations. This is, what we call like generational curses, like some of them are just really vows. When somebody was in an event of extreme pain and she vowed against something or into something, right? And so this then introduces to our conversation today the element of generational healing, right? Which is very vital. when you're healing your womb, right? Because as mentioned, for the vast majority of us African women, our womb pain, our inner womb wounds, they flow from generational wounding. Yes. And another element there within like this generational wounding is of sexual trauma, right? Of ancestors who might have encountered like a sexual violation and whose deep wounding is then left, like the imprint of whose deep wounding is then left on her womb and is passed down generations, right? So when you look at like some of the womb pains we currently sit with right now, excessive menstrual bleeding, excruciating menstrual cramping, some of those are generational, right? The cysts, the fibroids, many of those things are generational. Some, would emanate from your current, like from experiences of your current life, right? So when we do the inner healing work, we go back to your childhood coming, like just exploring all of those events and doing emotional and spiritual healing, right? For those experiences that might have been deeply wounding and that would have happened in your life, right? Yes. So yeah, that's about it in terms of, where this wounding would have happened, right? In your relationship with your mother. It would flow from the unprocessed emotions, from the experiences you have with your mom in this lifetime and other lifetimes, and also from the unprocessed emotions you might have inherited from your mother, right? And her own grandmothers, right? But like largely when we speak like mother wound, it's usually relating to the experiences between you and your mother, right? However, when we now sit and we do the womb healing work, we now need to also do the generational healing work, right? Whether it's like human ancestry or soul ancestry, right? And just do like a very deep healing, attending to the roots of the source of your pain, right? Yeah, let me know if you might have any questions. And let me know whether this is landing. Is it landing well for you? Does it make sense? Are you gathering anything from this interaction of ours today? Let me know. Yeah, and I also see that there are men in the room. Please let me know how this is landing for you. And I'm also curious about how how you would be drawn to like a session on womb healing. Please let me know just about some of your, like just your inspiration being here today, some of your intentions, some of what you're hoping for, right? Yeah, and so then in the next segment of our session, we're going to explore the ways in which mother wound healing will actually help in healing your womb, right? So we've explored all the points of woundings, the wounding that would have happened, which can be quite heavy, right? And if it's feeling heavy for you, I would usually like want to do like an emotional clearing. I've rarely ever done it here on the socials, but I think one of these days I should just host like a clearing, a meditation session for us to come do like an emotional clear and a spiritual clear. I'll arrange for that. I'll think about it and arrange for it. So when we step into the work of healing your womb and employing this pathway of mother wound healing, this is going to help a lot, like in just sifting through and clearing or healing the unprocessed emotions that are sitting in your body, that are sitting in your womb, relating to your mother, and that are resulting in your womb pain, right? Like this is like a very intricate process. Like I have a womb healing program, which is like a 12-session program, right? And each session is like 3 hours long. So in those 3 hours, we could be focusing on one event that would have taken place and just going deep into it. First identifying what the root of your womb pain is, then looking at some of the beliefs and the vows you would have made as a result of that event. And also, just looking at how those beliefs and vows inform your current relationship with your body, with your sexuality, how that is actually resulting in womb pain, etc. And then doing like an emotional and spiritual like healing ritual, like it's essentially a clearing, of that old emotion and old wounding within you, right? So and also, just by you stepping into a healing session, and us beginning to talk about, some of these experiences you would have had, that on its own, it can really help in you beginning to process some of the emotions, that you've been sitting with and that you've probably never shared with anyone, right? And so for me, the talking alone is never enough. Yes, we are going to talk, but we also want to take it to the next level of just going deep into your emotional body, deep into your spiritual body, and attending to the root of your womb pain, right? And also looking at, because like when a fracture happens, it affects so much within your life. So we would also want to heal like the timelines that would have emanated from, or that would have flowed as a result from that wounding experience, right? So like that's part of how we would do the healing. We would want to heal the timelines where this wounding has happened, right? And also heal the associated timelines, and events and experiences resulting from this wounding, right? So, for example, you might have an abandonment wound from your relationship with your mom, which, for example, would now, deeply impact matters of intimacy in your life, right? And so when we do the inner healing work, we want to attend to the root of that abandonment wound, and also attend to the wounding that has happened in your matters of intimacy that were as a result of this abandonment wound, right? And so another way in which mother wound healing will help in healing your womb is like just really helping you heal your relationship with your womb, with your body, with your sexuality, with intimacy, as learned and inherited from your mother. So this bit, like it just looks at your own inherited conditioning and programming around your relation, your own inherited conditioning and programming specifically from your mother, relating to your own beliefs and relationship with your body, with sexuality, with intimacy, etc. When we dive into this work of mother wound healing in the realm of womb healing, there's no way in which we are not going to have a conversation around how your relationship with your mother has influenced how you currently relate with your womb, with your body, with intimacy, with your sexuality, with pleasure. So those are some of the gifts you would get from the work, right? And it will also really help in healing the wounding sustained or inherited from the womb of your mother and your grandmothers, right? When we step into this work, we're definitely also going to stumble upon those unprocessed emotions and the wounding, the womb wounding that you inherited. That was your mother's, and that you inherited from her, right? Such a powerful work, right? And this is now stepping into the realm now of DNA healing. It will help heal the generational wounding of your grandmothers, that left an imprint on their DNA and has now been passed to all of these girl children in your family, right? And the beautiful thing about this is that when you heal, when you do a healing that actually heals your DNA, you are healing your ancestors and also ensuring that this wounding is not passed down to your descendants. This is what makes it a generational healing, right? It goes like 7, whatever you do here in 2021, if you decide to do the inner healing work, it will benefit 7 generations going forward and 7 generations of ancestors going back. It's such a beautiful work, right? Yeah, and what will also almost like inevitably happen when we do this work of employing mother wound healing to heal your womb is of just healing your inner child, right? So inner child healing relates to, just us deeply interrogating your childhood experiences and allowing healing for those wounding experiences within your childhood, right? And a huge chunk of these unprocessed emotions that we've spoken about in your relationship with your mom, a huge chunk of them, those events, they happened in your childhood, right? And so there's no way in which we can do mother wound healing without doing inner child healing, right? So I say a huge chunk because some of them, some of the events would have happened in your adult life, right? And so I want us to also explore exactly how we would do this inner healing work, even though, I won't be able to demonstrate it here. You can, like the thing with healing work, you can, like the only demonstration I can provide is like when you're already in a healing session with me. So I've actually attached to the caption of this video a link for you if you're feeling called to, to do inner healing work. You can book a once-off 2-hour session with me. The investment is $50, which is like 550 Botswana Pula or 750 South African rands, right? And if you're in other countries, you can convert that to your local currency. So it's only when you step into a healing session with me that you'll actually like see what we mean by like this inner child healing, healing the timeline where the wounding happened, etc. You will see that. You will actually get to experience it, right? So but for now, let me just tell you how this healing is done, right? So one, as I've already mentioned, we'll definitely do a lot of emotional clearing, right? There's no way in which I would do womb healing work with you without doing emotional clearing, because unprocessed emotions are they're running the show for a lot of human beings, both men and women, So even as a man, when you step into my healing containers, we are going to do emotional clearing. But specifically for the womb, we have to clear your womb of any emotion, old wounding, old trauma that might be sitting in your womb. And we also want to do like emotional and spiritual clearing of the vows and beliefs formed, right, as a result of some of your wounding experiences between you and your mom, her and her grandmother, and that now govern the experiences you have with your body. The specific vows that we have made as women, either in this lifetime or previous lifetime, that govern how we experience our body, that govern the experience of our womb, whether she's happy, whether she's sad, etc. Right? So we want to do an emotional and spiritual clearing of those vows, essentially to heal them, right? to clear those vows, to release them, right? And then we also want to clear the vows you have inherited, the beliefs you have inherited from your mother and from your grandmothers, right? So yeah, like this is then in the realm of DNA healing, because we are then healing the genetic imprint of those wounding experiences, right? That happened to your mom, that happened to your grandmothers, right? And so yeah, like this work of the mother wound, like when we begin to explore like the ancestral element of it, it goes deep into your maternal lineages, right? Or both your mom and your dad, right? Because some of the wounding that we carry, it also like it flows from both lines, of mom and dad. And so what we also want to heal, I've already mentioned this one, is like spiritual healing for the timelines where the wounding occurred, right? It could be like of some grandmother where a deep wounding happened from her. I mean, for her, on her. It could have been like a violation on her body. We want to journey into the spiritual realms, right? And heal the point, that timeline where that wounding happened, right? The wounding that would then be the one that is resulting in your womb pain right now. Yeah, and the other work is inner child work, right? Inner child healing work. So yeah, like it's a vast work, but very, very necessary. And like I just wanted really to share this series, the womb medicine teaching series, is essentially just for us to explore these themes, and they're actually more than concepts. I almost said like these concepts, but they're really more than concepts because they're lived experiences, right? So that we may be empowered in our journeys of inner healing and expansion, right? I know that some of the terms might be new for a lot of us here on the African continent, like terms such as like mother wound or inner child or father wound, right? But when you begin to become exposed to such work, like it's really, really empowering. You really begin to understand what is happening in your own life, right? Yeah, so like for me, the past 2 weeks, like my mother wound has been so deeply triggered in the past 2 weeks. I'm feeling better now. And like this is because where I am, like my mom is here and my grandmother is also here with us. And so just having like 3 generations of women on the same compound, like it triggered so many of our mother woundings, right? My mother woundings, and I think my mom's wounding, and my grandmother's wounding, relating to her own people. And so it was such like an interesting unfolding to witness, and so yeah, like please just reflect on what's been shared here and see what might relate to your own experiences in your own life. The mother wound is such a big wound for humanity, and especially for women, and so a friend of mine related to me an experience of a woman who, whenever she was around her mother, she would like experience like excruciating menstrual cramping and pains. And so she observed this over a period of time, right? And that trigger would only happen when she was around her mother, right? And so that indicated to some mother wound thing that was happening. It could have either been like a trigger to some of these unprocessed emotions, or just something that was happening within the spirit body. So like I'm sharing that to just share that like it's real, it's like it's something real, that is actually alive in our lives, whether we might be aware of it or not, and yeah, it does serve us to take note of it and to take note of where it might be running in our lives, right? Yeah. And so, like, just as a wrap up, in our session today, we explored the link between womb healing or just womb pain and your mother and your relationship with your mother, specifically looking at the woundings, that might have occurred in your relationship with your mother, or just by you having been born to your mother and into her lineage, and that might actually be resulting in your womb pain, right? And we also looked at the ways in which mother wound healing would help in healing your womb pain, helping you clear some of the old emotion, old trauma sitting in your body and in your womb, helping you heal, whatever trauma you might have inherited from your mother, and also healing the generational wounding of your grandmothers, right? So, yeah, and we also explored how we would actually do that healing, even though it would be a futile attempt to try to demonstrate it, right? And maybe also lastly, let me share like some of the associated works. When we're doing mother wound healing, as mentioned, there's no way in which we would not talk about inner child healing. Another associated work is intimacy work, body healing work, sexuality healing work, right? And yeah, like just in closing and as an invitation, if you're feeling called, if having listened to all that I shared today and you're really feeling called to get started on the journey of healing your womb, of healing your body, of healing your life, I invite you to book a 2-hour once of healing session with me. It's a private session. It will be online, right? And I've attached a link to the booking calendar on the caption of this video. So when you click on that, it's going to lead you to my calendar, and you're going to just select an available day and time that works for you, and we will get started with the work, right, of healing your body, healing your womb, and essentially healing your lineage, right? It's been such a joy for me to be here with you this evening and share this knowledge and this wisdom that when we really implement it has the capacity to heal, deeply heal our lives, to deeply heal our lineages, and to heal our world, and bring about the consciousness that's needed to take our world to where we've been saying we wanted to go. Yeah. And from me, Tumelo Moreri, I'm happy to have been here and deeply grateful to have journeyed with you this evening. I wish you a beautiful rest of the week and an amazing evening. Bye.